The video game industry is at the forefront of technology. We build brand new workflows to be super efficient. Let's take a look at a cool example with a palm tree and a well. We can see the palm tree automatically adjusting so it pokes through natural holes in the roof instead of conflicting with existing geometry. Organic models and naturally intersecting with hard surfaces like this is very difficult. By automatically generating this, we save hundreds or even thousands of hours of manual work. But here's a quick question. When do you think this technology was released? Just think of some years. What could it be? Around what time? Here's the UI. That already looks a lot older, right? This technology is actually called SpeedTree, and this is a YouTube video that was released April 2009. That is 16 years ago. So this talk is a history lesson, and it's called Old News, New Package, AI, Procedural Generation, UGC, In-Game Trading, Blockchain, and the Metaverse. It was first held at Gamescom Congress in 2025. First, a little information on who I am. Who is Robin-Yann? And this is important as it ties into the takeaway of the talk. I have over 15 years of game development experience. I was a tool designer at IO Interactive, working on the Glacier editor, used to build the Hitman games. I was a tool designer at Guerrilla Games, working on the Decima editor and engine, used to build the Horizon games. And a tool designer at Apple in California, working on Reality Composer and Reality Converter. I'm also a co-inventor on 5 patents, which you can Google if you'd like. And nowadays, I'm a freelance product and UX designer, working as a consultant for various companies. The takeaway of this talk is, when you hear something fantastical, please ask a game industry veteran about it. Because if you work on the future of immersion, you have a responsibility to know the history of these technologies so that you can guarantee the well-being of your users. There are lessons to be learned from the past. So let's go through time. We'll start off with the blockchain around 2016, then the metaverse around 2020, and then AI around 2022. So let's start with blockchain. When blockchain came to the games industry, a topic that came up often was, what if players could trade items between games? And yes, that would be incredible, which is why Steam did it in 2011. Here's the Steam trading UI from back then. We can see 2 players exchanging items. They've both placed items into the interface and can decide to trade them. And this worked for like a lot of games. For example, Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and Dota 2. So let's say you have a hat in Team Fortress 2. You can trade that for a gun that you can use in CSGO. Or trade a gun from CSGO for a courier in Dota 2. Or if you have a courier in Dota 2, you can trade that for a hat that you can wear in Team Fortress 2. So this item trading, this goes across Steam games. For example, here's my actual Steam inventory. We can go through this list here and we can see how many games actually have items that are tradable. Some are just for Steam trading cards, but there's also loads where they're for items that you can actually use in-game. And if we go to Counter-Strike 2 here at the top, we can also find some cases. Like, for example, this Danger Zone case, which is a unique series, has a number there, and we can see it as worth €2, and about 7,000 have been sold in the last 24 hours. And here is another case for Operation Hydra. It's worth much more, €26, and only 155 have been sold in the last 24 hours. And if we click on the sell button, we also see a graph of its costs. We see it was worth more earlier this year, and now it is worth less. So I can also put this up for sale and decide for how much I want to sell it. Also, here's a special item, Souvenir Tech 9. I got this when unboxing it during the Cologne 2016 esports event. It has unique stickers on it for that event too. We can also see it in-game. If I open up my inventory, we can see those items and that Tech 9. We can see the unique stickers on there that are actually for the players of that match when I unboxed it. We can also see it equipped on an in-game character. They're now nice and shiny, great. So I could sell this to others, make money off of it, and then even buy a game with that money. This has existed for a long time. Now, another topic that came up a lot is like, what if players could sell their own items? And yes, user-generated content went on sale too. Fully 3D modeled and textured by players. Here's a big list from the Team Fortress 2 wiki. Players can make hats, weapons, and nowadays even animations, which they can then send to Valve, and if Valve approves them, they can appear in loot boxes. The creators then get a share of the money they make. We can see how many items this really is. It is huge. And also, creators can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on items like this. Like, this is a huge economy. So huge, in fact, that Valve had an economist on staff in 2012 to 2013. This guy, you might know him, Yanis Varoufakis. He also later became the Minister of Finance in Greece during the late stages of the Euro debt crisis. So these items can be incredibly valuable. For example, this is a karambit, case hardened. It has a unique texture on it that is set in such a way that the knife edge is entirely blue. This is a randomly unique texture setting that can happen when you unbox it. It is also colloquially known as the blue gem, and it was once worth over $1.5 million. This is what it looks like in game. It's very blue. And there's also other things and items, like for example a gun. There's this AK-47. It's also very blue. And again, there are unique stickers on it for a particular year that makes it more valuable for certain collectors. And there's even black markets available for such items. So you look them up on separate websites, do payments outside of Steam, and then do the trade itself inside Steam. This is a huge economy, also with a lot of gambling involved. And none of this is blockchain. It's already existed for ages before that. And so the question here is, did you know this? And do not just ask this yourself, also ask others when you discuss these topics. Did you know this? Ask them. Because if not, they are missing fundamental knowledge. They might not be well-versed enough to discuss these systems. Another topic that often came up with blockchain was, but the players own the NFTs outside the game. And yes, that's true. But games work in particular ways. So there's always a game, and there's some kind of game database for accounts, logins, and tracking items to those accounts. So you have the hats on a database, and you can then sell them on that marketplace for the game, and the game gets a cut. Great. But if your account gets banned, the hats are lost. And this has happened on Steam, where folks get their account banned and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of unique items. So in comes the NFT blockchain. Now we still need a game and a game database, because that's how games work. And now there are also NFTs, essentially receipts that then point to the hats in-game. So you can now sell those NFTs outside of the game anytime on the blockchain for a bunch of money. But you can still lose your game. You can still lose your account. It can still get banned. Your hats can still be lost, which means the NFTs pointing at the hats lose their worth too. Nothing has really changed. So when someone says, but the players own the NFTs outside the game, it's no, the game still has to respect the NFT, and it can decide not to. The blockchain does not change the actual end user experience. And we saw this with Ubisoft Quartz as well, where Ubisoft released playable NFTs. They said it was a new experience designed for Ubisoft players, which allows you to collect the first, playable and energy efficient, Ubisoft NFTs. And their name is Digits. And they are first available with Ghost Recon and FPS, like CSGO. Okay, and they are playable in-game, like with CSGO. And they are unique digital collectibles, like we saw with CSGO. And you can use them to complete missions in style, like we saw with CSGO. And they say digits are unique. Are they? You can see the problem here, right? And they are released in limited editions. Sure, like in CSGO. And this was released in 2021, a decade after Valve already did this with Steam without a blockchain. So the question here is, in ABA lingo, what's the value added? And Forbes actually wrote an article later saying that Ubisoft Quartz's Ghost Recon NFTs appear to have made just $400 total. I think that a regular database between all the various Ubisoft games with in-game usable items would be fine instead and probably make a bunch of money. So when people ask why are people in the games industry so against progress, they're not. They've just seen it before. They're being critical of the technology because the games industry is so much at the forefront of technology. Now, in recent news is the Steam payment processor issues, where games cannot be bought or sold anymore due to payment processor limitations. This then also extended to other markets like itch.io. So we can learn from this that having a secondary market for payments and transfers is helpful. So please try to build that. Learn from the past if you do, though. Do not repeat the same mistakes of the past because it can cause that venture to fail. Now, another topic that came up during the blockchain times was, what if players could use the exact same item between different games? And indeed, that could be neat. There's also an example of this from, you might have guessed it, Team Fortress 2, where the character named Bill has a hat, and eventually they made that hat available to be worn by characters in Team Fortress 2. But that is, again, without blockchain. And you can tell the hats look slightly different between one another because the games have different art styles. So making the exact same object easily usable across engines and editors is a big effort in the games industry, the movie VFX industry, and even the car and industrial sectors. In fact, this effort is called OpenUSD, which was open sourced by Pixar in 2016. There's even an alliance for OpenUSD, and their mission is to provide standardization for 3D objects. They have a huge membership, of trillion-dollar companies all trying to make this a reality, but it's not a reality yet. There's a lot of hard work going on, and I know this because I host the OpenUSD roundtables at GDC, so I'm a part of some of these conversations. If you want to learn more about USD, I made a video about it. There's a link in the description. But essentially, the thing to understand here that is this is unrelated to blockchain. It's a completely different problem, which is asset pipelines. Like a blockchain doesn't solve that. So again, when you hear something fantastical, please ask a game industry veteran about it. Ask questions like, have you seen this before? Who did it and when? What problems did they have? What solutions did they find? So you can learn and avoid those issues. So yes, that was blockchain. For the games industry, please chat to people. Please talk to them. So next, the metaverse. So metaverse is a tough term because the definition of metaverse is up for debate. So let's go through a couple of definitions to see what we can learn from history. So what is a metaverse? Is it a lot of IP, a lot of intellectual property? Ready Player One, both a book and a movie, certainly popularized this, like with lots of IP available for everyone to play with. So is that a metaverse? If so, Fortnite did it. They definitely achieved this. Like, here's a video from Patty Nest. We can see Spider-Man with a gun, and then suddenly also Goku walks in with a gun, and then someone gets killed by a Kamehameha later on, and I want to note this is incredible. Like, a few years ago, this would be considered a total fantasy. Like, this much IP used in these ways for everyone to play around with? It's amazing. It's incredible. But it's entirely within their own game. Like, Fortnite, UEFN. The way I've heard this phrased is, there's no metaverse yet, but there are IP bubbles. And this was said by Brenden, player unknown Green, at the Indigo 2025 conference. I think it's a very apt way of phrasing it. So instead, what is a metaverse? Is it people meeting in digital 3D worlds? If so, online games did this. Like in World of Warcraft, where sometimes if a person dies in real life, folks hold a funeral for them in-game to pay respect. Or folks meeting in World of Warcraft and then getting married in-game, and even in real life. And this was released in 2004. I even met my guild leader in real life, like whom I used to raid with in a Burning Crusade back in 2008. There's also Second Life, released in 2003, that allowed people to meet up in 3D spaces and did so many more revolutionary things in its time. And if you want to go even further back in time, there's also EverQuest, released in 1999. You can tell from the graphics this is quite an older game. Now, we could go even further back, but I think you kind of get the point at this point, right? Like, there's a lot of older games that have done these things. So, what is a metaverse? Is it real-life interaction? If so, Pokemon Go did it, right? It's like Pokemon Go was released in 2016. You would literally bump into random people on the street and start playing together. It was awesome. And there are still events ongoing nowadays where you can buy tickets to play together, like in Amsterdam. And the company that made Pokemon Go, Niantic, used to be called Niantic Labs. And they released another game before called Ingress. You would pick a team in Ingress, play on your phone, and go to locations physically in real life. Then you would battle over those locations, and it would comprise the real world. You would meet real people playing this game. Does that sound familiar? The Ingress database is what was used by Niantic for the Pokemon Go database, so that they would have Pokestops right away at launch. So they took Ingress, gave it a coat of paint of an amazingly well-liked IP, and it went bananas. This was released in 2013. So is that a metaverse? If so, that was done. So what is a metaverse? Is it buying digital property? If so, Final Fantasy XIV did it. So it was released in 2010 by Square Enix as an MMO in the Final Fantasy IP. And in-game, there were a finite amount of locations available for housing. So when a house went on sale, you would have to literally wait in front of a for sale sign and be the highest bidder to be able to get it, overbidding many others to try and get it. So finite digital property, that has been done. So what is the metaverse? Is it having legs in VR? If so, VR chat did it, right? The amount of high technology that furries have made is crazy to think about, and it will be a whole nother video all on its own. So is there a metaverse yet? Now, a counter-argument that I often hear for this is companies are investing billions into these technologies. And again, that's true. I cannot refute that. It is true. Like, for example, Facebook in 2021 renamed itself to Meta. And that's $1 trillion company. But the question is, when have you been in a metaverse? Have you? It's been a couple of years now. It's important to understand that investment does not equal success. Just because a lot of money is involved does not mean it has wide appeal. Remember that NFT that was sold for like $60 million at an auction? Or Paris Hilton talking about a monkey NFT on The Tonight Show? When have you used or heard about NFTs recently? Investment does not equal success. And again, I want to be clear. The combination of these metaverse elements, plus the required technology, could still happen. We could still get a metaverse out there. If you learn from the past and do not repeat the same mistakes, please still do this. And there are others who know even way more about this. For example, Raf Koster gave a fantastic talk called Real Talk About a Real Metaverse. I highly recommend viewing it, and it's linked in the description. He goes over the specific technology needed for the metaverse and the dates some of them were achieved over the decades. Thank you very much to Celia Hodent for telling me about this talk. So when you hear something fantastical, please ask a game industry veteran about it. That goes for the metaverse. All right, last but certainly not least, AI, artificial intelligence. So, AI, procedural generation, Gen AI, again, the nomenclature here is confusing. What is AI? Is it ChatGPT? Is the other LLMs? Is it machine learning, procedural content, simulation, NPCs, behavior trees, algorithms? It's important to note what you're talking about when you're talking about AI. If you're only talking about these top ones, you're probably missing the point. Because all of these ones are AI too, and these have existed for ages, and they're awesome. Also, this naming convention issue for AI has been a long issue in game development too. At the Game Development Conference, GDC, in 2009, there was a talk from Steve Rabin about defining game AI. So this was difficult even back then. So when someone says you should use AI, otherwise you'll be left behind, to someone in game development, it's a bit like saying you should use algorithms, otherwise you'll be left behind. It's yeah, we use technology to speed up our work. But that does not always mean having to use LLMs. Because more generation does not mean faster game development. We've learned this in the games industry a few times painfully. Here's one example. We used to have to hand build small terrains, 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer. So you would have to hand paint mountains, hand paint rivers, hand place forests, sometimes even tree by tree. I know it sounds nuts. So you would have to place villages, have to place cities. It was a lot of work. Then, in the 2010s, things changed. Suddenly, terrain generation, the procedural generation of it, became much easier due to technological advancements. Suddenly, you could build 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer maps with ease. You could generate entire mountain ranges and even volcanoes. You could automatically generate rivers and even make them automatically intersect with mountains. You can generate entire forests and automatically make them intersect with rivers. Then you could place a city and a few villages and you'd be ready to go. So big AAA studios did this, and then they gave it to playtesters. And playtesters hated it. They said it felt empty and repetitive. This really happened? You can ask folks in AAA. It was a terrible, terrible time. So suddenly, you had to build a whole bunch of new cities and new villages and new quests and NPCs to fill up this giant world and not make it feel empty. So procedural generation didn't remove work. It added work. It added way more work. Suddenly, you had to build new towns and villages with unique environment art, and NPCs with unique dialogue, both written and spoken, and quests and missions with unique stories and rewards, and all of this content had to be balanced correctly. So you also needed a new role in the team, a brand new one, an economy designer for a function item economy. So procedural generation removed some work, yes, but also added way more work. So to quote someone, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to ask themselves whether they should. Of course, said by the great Dr. Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. So, creating a lot of stuff isn't helpful. Freya Holmer made a great video about this called Generative AI as a Parasitic Cancer, which is linked in the description below. In her case, she wanted to know more about the GLB file format, but all the red markings you see on the results page here are AI-generated slop that contain stuff, sure, but not actually the right info. Much like how we generated a lot of terrain in video games, but not an interesting world. So another topic that has come up a lot is, what if the game automatically reacts to the player? Yes, that would be cool, which is why Left 4 Dead's director mode already did this, and it was released in 2008. So how Left 4 Dead works is you have 4 survivors, it's a multiplayer game with 4 players, and you have zombies that they have to shoot to survive. There's then an AI director looking at the gameplay to ensure a fun and smooth experience, so that there are highs and lows and a fun pacing throughout the game. For example, maybe you aren't doing so well, so it spawns a few less zombies. But then you get your items back and you're doing well, so it spawns way more zombies. And this is a well-known system in the games industry because Valve publicly talked about this. Here's a talk, and they call it the Adaptive Dramatic Pacing Algorithm, which is a key system of the AI director. This information, and much more, is in a talk called The AI Systems of Left 4 Dead by Michael Booth, which released in 2009. So, another thing that has come up a lot with a new LLM AI wave is, what if the NPC could reply to anything you asked it? And the question that you need to ask someone who says this is, do you think the reason NPCs don't is purely the cost? Because it's game design. Let's say an NPC approaches you in-game and they say, hello. Then another NPC approaches you. They say, great weather today. Then you walk past another and they say, my husband's been kidnapped. Now, which one do you think you need to talk to get a quest or advance the story? Talking to NPCs is a game design system. If you could infinitely talk to every NPC, it would get extremely confusing. So can you generate unlimited dialogue for your NPCs? Yes, you can. Is that good game design? No, probably not. Again, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to ask themselves whether they should. Now, I'm not saying it can't be solved. I'm saying at the moment, it's not solved. So when you hear an idea like this, check up on it with a veteran from the games industry and see, has this been done before? And if so, why and how? Because of course, there are useful applications for AI. For example, Promethean AI released this video in 2019, long before ChatGPT, in which they have an asset system automatically tag assets correctly. And then you ask it questions in natural language, and it shows you what assets you are looking for without having to remember their names. It's awesome. Workflows like this greatly help speed up game development. And they are natural language and fuzzy search, which we've had for ages. Let me give you another example. I often use my MacBook to present at conferences and companies. So I connect my laptop to a projector or screen, and then I want to be able to set up that monitor correctly so it displays my presentation. macOS has a great feature called Spotlight Search that allows me to search for anything on my MacBook. So let's search. So I search for screen, because I want to get the chest settings of my screen, but I get no good results. Then I search for monitor, because I want to adjust my external monitor. Nope, no good results either. No, I have to type displays, and then I get the options I want. Now, screen and monitor aren't bad words. They make sense. They're just not exactly correct. So this is a great place for a natural language system to suggest me features that make more sense. Or what about in Blender, when I want to see the statistics of the scene, such as triangles and vertices, etc. So I can hit F3 and search. But if I type triangles, vertices, or even if I type statistics, I do not get the function I want. Instead, I have to go up here to this button in this toolbar, and then there it is, the statistics function. I turn it on, and there are my statistics of the scene. An automated system would be nice to have here that searches through all options right away. But do you need an expensive LLM for this? Does it need a $2 billion data center? Or is an algorithm fine? Probably. Please do take busy work out of developers' hands. For example, I recently released a YouTube video about blueprints, and then I had a script written for it. So on YouTube, I just copy and paste that script into it, and then it automatically detects what words I say in the video and attaches the subtitles to exactly the moments where I say those words automatically. Frame perfectly. It's amazing. This saves me hours and hours of manual work. It's awesome. It does not need to train on my voice to do this either. And this has existed for years. This YouTube technology existed long before ChatGPT. And Ubisoft has shown lots of interesting motion matching animation tech at SIGGRAPH in 2020, which you can also find on YouTube. So again, game developers have used new technology to improve workflows for a long time. And there are also technologies like DLSS, Deep Learning Supersampling, that can give you higher frame rates in video games. It's awesome tech and can run locally. It's released in 2018, again, long before ChatGPT or other LLM AI explosions. So again, when you talk about AI, be specific. When you give a talk, do a panel, host a roundtable, have a conversation with someone at work, be specific. What is AI? Which one do you mean? Now, there is way more to discuss, like environmental costs, ethical and labor issues, and so much more. Please ask other folks about these. I'm an expert at video game development workflows, and this talk was supposed to only be 30 minutes anyway, so ask folks like Celia Hodent about her push for ethical usage, for example. Again, the core here is a real expert will have a historical view on technology. We are seeing the same technologies again and again over time. We're just seeing them at different scales. Like the money Fortnite makes from UGC is vastly larger than Team Fortress 2's UGC items. Inherently, though, we can learn from what happened before and see patterns repeat, and that we can use that to avoid previous mistakes. You can stand on the shoulders of giants. So again, the takeaway here is, when you hear something fantastical, please ask a game industry veteran about it. But when their LinkedIn profile says that in 2016 they were a blockchain expert, then in 2020 suddenly a Metaverse expert, and then in 2022 suddenly an AI expert, consider asking someone else. Because this is someone who is moving from thing to thing, and they may not have the experience that you need to deeply understand these technologies and their history. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the folks who provided feedback and thoughts on this presentation. I really appreciate you.